All right.
Madam Mayor, what kind of compensation are you receiving for your work on ABC News for the election?
None.
So there will be.
But thank you for noticing my work. I hope you've enjoyed. I know it is a competing network, but.
Yeah. So there's nothing.
And I think you've noticed that I've been doing national television shows for years without compensation. But maybe it's because I'm getting better that you think they're paying me.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if you had signed any sort of agreements or.
I'm a sitting elected official. They are not allowed to compensate sitting elected officials.
Do you want to give us an idea what you're going to be doing after you leave office in December?
My hope is that you will lose interest in what I'm doing.
Never.
That is my desperate wish.
I understand one of the victims in the bus crash has some ties to city government. What's going on inside City Hall with employees and how they're feeling?
So our flags at City Hall will be at half staff. It was a rough day yesterday. For so many reasons. As I said, Baltimore's a big city, but it really felt like a small town yesterday. There were so many connections that people had to the individuals who we lost in that tragic bus crash. And, we're certainly working with counselors all around to see if there's anyone that needs additional support. It was a lot to go through for a lot of the first responders. While they are used to dealing with tragedy to that size, I don't think anyone that was out there had been at a scene that large.
Who is the employees? What's the connection?
It's a relative of a DPW. The driver, the MTA driver, is a relative of a DPW employee.
Can you say what the relation is?
She was the daughter of a DPW solid waste driver, Mr. Raymond Wright. And we've reached out to offer our support to his family as well.
Is Wright spelled with a W?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are the biggest questions, the most important questions you feel need to be answered about this accident?
The obvious one, why? What happened? I think that, I'm grateful that the NTSB is involved. When I took a look at the condition of the bus, I think there's some significant questions about survivability of a bus crash. And I know that it was doing research on car crashes that made cars safer for passengers, and the way that the bus was crushed, it looked like it was just blown to bits like matchsticks. So my hope is that something positive comes from this enormous tragedy, and maybe it's them taking a look at safety standards for our buses.
Getting back to the employee and his daughter, I mean, it sounds like she became a bus driver after he works as the driver of the city. Do you know anything about her?
No. Other than what's been made public.
Have you talked with Mr. Wright personally?
Not personally yet, but we have reached out to Mr. Wright and his family, and offering our support.
Anything you want to say about the delay of, well, I shouldn't say delay, but the status of the consent decree negotiations?
A couple of things I'll say about it. I think my administration has been marked by a track record of not kicking the can down the road, and I have no intention of doing so in this case. The challenge is my administration has also been marked by trying to do the right thing and working hard to get it right. We've done that when it comes to updating our water system. the way we dealt with abandoned and blighted property, you know, the hard work that we've done on writing our budget, our structural budget deficit. These are tough things that I've tackled, and the consent decree is another tough thing. A tough thing that has to be right, and I was unwilling to rush it for an optimistic and artificial deadline.
With, what's the harder aspect to find agreement on? Is it like specific policies, specific reforms, or is it the financial cost that comes with implementing reform?
It's all of those things. I mean, this is a very, in order to get a consent decree right, it is a very complicated and complex agreement that we have to compare and contrast to other consent decrees around the country, but also make sure that, you know, this is not a cookie cutter agreement. This has to be specifically tailored for the needs of Baltimore in order for this to be right. So it is tough work.
Do you have a?
You want another artificial timeline,
Well,
deadline?
well, since you brought it up, do you have another deadline?
Artificial deadline, no. Working with, you know, the thing is we understand, I understand the urgency. Everyone that works for me understands the urgency. I would love to be able to get this done before 12 noon, December the 6th. But understand this, if it doesn't get done, it's not because we're dragging our feet. We are working as hard as we can around the clock. People are working over the weekends. You know, this is important work that we're doing.
You voted yesterday. From what you saw, do you think that some of the...
I voted on the first day of
Oh,
early.
sorry. Last week then.
Yeah.
From what you saw, did the issues from the primary election seem to be resolved at your polling place, and your vote?
I'll say that it's definitely seemed like there were more judges. From talking to Armstead, they were still doing training to ensure that there were even more judges available and trained for Tuesday. So I was pleased about that. You know, it was hard to tell at my polling place because I was there on the first day of early voting with a mass of people. So there's no way to process that many people without a wait. I did not feel that it was an inordinate wait time. And there were very few people that I saw during that time come in, look at the line, and say, forget about it.
With these safety dynamics, price proposal going to be open today, what are your expectations for gunshot location detection systems in the city?
So I've talked about the fact that we always are looking for technology to help us as a force multiplier and to amplify the work that we're doing to make Baltimore safer. My hope that is that this technology will help us as well. I'm always looking for more tools to put at the police commissioner's disposal than less, and in some areas around the country where ShotSpotter has, where this shot detection technology has been put in place, it's been helpful. So we are optimistic. I'm optimistic that it'll be a useful tool here as well.
And what specific measurement? I mean, would you judge its efficacy based on an increased clearance rate, based on fewer shots fired? What specific data would be best to look at to decide on its efficacy or not?
So I don't want to give a knee-jerk response to, you know, what those things look like. I'd rather, you know, the police take a look at where it's been helpful in other jurisdictions and use those measurements and look for ways if there's a different, you know, you talked about clearance rate. Maybe that's one of the things. It seems pretty obvious that could be a help. But I don't, you know, I'm sure they could give you a much more detailed response about how we're going to measure the effectiveness of the shot detection technology. And I have a correction, I'm sorry. The father is Daryl Spence, S-P-E-N, as in Nancy, C-E, Daryl Spence. Raymond Wright is also a DPW worker. The father's a driver, he's a worker, and that's the brother of the driver.
So Daryl Spence is the
driver, DPW driver, who is also the father of the MTA driver.
And Raymond Wright is her brother?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
They both work for DPW.
Yes, the father and the
That's for
brother.
Daryl?
Yes, it seems that it's one R, Daryl.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Anybody else? Well, it's certainly been a pleasure. Thank you.